Like me, you are on the search for ways to play this game better than you ever have before. Is it possible the answer comes in a box about this big? We'll take a look today at the Total Golf Trainer. Hi, I'm Bill Hobson from Michigan Golf Live and the 4Golfers Network, and like you, I'm on this constant pursuit to play the game better and lower my score. And as I get older, I find that I need more reminders on how to keep my body moving through the swing, which is why I'm especially excited today to unbox and review the Total Golf Trainer system. Now, rather than try and do that here in the confines of the studio, I decided to make a little road trip to my friend Kyle Martin, who is the PGA professional at the Fortress Golf Course in Frankenmuth. Kyle does a lot of teaching and is always looking into the latest innovations for teaching aids. So he will help me as we introduce you to the Total Golf Trainer. And Kyle, in advance of my visit here, I know that you spent some time online checking out the Total Golf Trainer. So as I open this thing up for the first time, what's inside and why does it matter to the average golfer?
I would call this box more of a Swiss Army knife. It's got a lot of different tools in it.
Kind of has that color to it.
Yeah. It's got a lot of different tools to work on your game. It's going to have some documentation in there on some tips and tricks on how to use it. I've actually spoke to a few of my friends that teach as well and have used it and have had great results.
So we have a device for your wrist. We'll look at that here in a little bit with our supermodel, Nick the Rocket Sears. Yeah. But there's, I think, the primary purpose of it, and again, we're going to unbox all of the elements here shortly. The primary purpose of it, from what I understand, is to help develop the feel of getting your hips cleared through the swing, right?
Yeah, that's one of the big tools that you're seeing a lot online, on social media, is to try and get those hips cleared, just to get position where your hands can lead the face and you can compress the ball.
Now, when I'm playing, and if I get a little bit lazy or tired in the latter part of the round, I think I stop getting off my back foot. I think I get a little lazy, get stuck. Is that kind of what we're learning to get through with this?
Yeah, it's exactly what most golfers face, whether it's early in the round or late in the round. Getting your torso to work a little harder, especially when you might not realize it, but you're running out of gas. To help close out that round or finish that tournament is huge.
Okay, so we're going to take all the wrapper off of every element of this thing and introduce you to Nick the Rocket Sears. We've finally broken him away from some of his fans and the autograph sessions that he's been a part of. So Kyle, I'm going to let you kind of walk through all of this with him.
Sure.
And we'll comment along the way.
Okay.
All right, Kyle, here you are with Nick the Rocket Sears, world famous long distance driver of the ball and a heartthrob to millions. So walk us through what you want to see with the Total Golf Trainer.
So right now we're using the Total Hip Trainer. So it's a clip that goes, it can either go on your trail hip or your lead hip. In this instance, we have it on his lead hip, on his left hip, since he's right-handed. And what I want you to do is just go ahead and set up. A lot of golfers that we work with struggle with their hips stalling out, especially in the start of their downswing, and that gets that club a little too far from the outside, and we start scooping at it. So let's go to the top of your backswing. So here's what I mean. When he starts his downswing, his hips all of a sudden will just stop, and that club, since that momentum is stopping from the ground up, that club is all of a sudden going to get into a position where he has to throw it, and he'll get into a position where he has that feedback from that Total Hip Trainer, which is good for players that struggle really scooping at the ball or topping it.
Is that casting? Is that what
casting,
we're here for?
Yeah.
Casting?
So go ahead and set back up. So the Total Hip Trainer is nice because it's going to show you, it's going to give you that feedback on how to get your hips cleared. Let's go to the top. And let's slowly work down where that Total Hip Trainer and that feedback is out in front of your hands.
That's Nick's actual swing speed, in case you were wondering. So ideally, if you're wearing the trainer, you're not making contact with that lead edge.
Correct. Those hips are out in front. Since the downswing transition into the downswing starts from the ground up, this helps reinforce that. Understanding how to fix it if you're an amateur golfer on the range by yourself may be difficult. I always recommend seeing your PGA professional, especially if you have questions on a training aid when you buy it or if you're thinking about buying it, just to get some information on how to use it the correct way to build solid fundamentals.
So, Nick, if you can make not a full speed swing, because I know that's at 210 miles an hour, but just something a little more flowing. Let's see how that looks, and you can tell us how it feels. Okay, so you've got that thing on your hip. Obviously, it's a different feeling. Would you normally have that motion, and do you think that that's a help to you?
For me, I normally have this motion. I'd probably have to have it on my back hip. Now, if I were to be really scoopy, yeah, it would. It definitely helps the feeling, like it gives you a look of getting that hip out of the way. But for me, that's not an issue. It would be back here. I'd get too much separation. So it would help a normal player, though. It does give you a pretty good indicator of where your hips are pointing. So,
Yeah, it goes back to,
it's not uncomfortable.
are you able to practice effectively on your own
Right.
if you're not aware of how to fix it?
And it's not uncomfortable. I mean, I can move, and I can hit shots. It's not like, even if you were to do it wrong, I mean, you would hit bad shots, obviously, and it would be uncomfortable, and it's not going to come out.
I think a lot of benefit can come out of just mirror work with it.
Yeah,
right? It's not necessarily hitting range balls, but yeah, if you're using the mirror, you can see where you are. In golf instruction circles, they'd call that proprioception, where you are spatially, right? How close is feel versus real? I think this could help narrow that gap, through that mirror work. It just depends on, if that end user, not in a lesson or not with anybody that has been trained on it, can use it effectively.
All right, Kyle and Nick, the next item is the V2, also part of this kit. Goes in the butt of the club, and I'll let you take it from here. What are we seeing?
So it has a clamp system, Velcro straps that go right around the grip, which can be a bit cumbersome, let's say for people that are not used to using training aids. It's a Velcro clasp. It is fairly secure onto the club. So we're going to use this just as a straight rod right now. I'll have Nick set up.
And having it in straight rod mode is going to do what for us? Why do we care about that?
So he's got this feedback. It's right on his left hip. The red ball is giving him feedback on how much shaft lean he has. So let's have you make a backswing, just about a half backswing. Good. So a lot of people, especially with a wedge in their hand, try and scoop the golf ball up or help and add some loft. So what happens, he's going to get that feedback on his left hip.
So if that ball hits your hip, you're approaching incorrectly. You got too much flip.
Yeah, and one of the biggest issues in what I call priority one in chipping is low point control, or where you hit the ground. So most players hit the ground before the ball or believe they should hit the ground at the ball, when in fact you should be hitting the ground on the target side, on the front side of the golf ball after you've made contact with the ball. So let's have them set up and just give me some slow motion half swing rehearsals where you keep the V2 away from that left hip. It's just going to help understand where that low point or where he has to make contact with the ground.
All right, so you got a little physical, tactile reminder if you're doing it incorrectly. Now, I know you can also bend that thing around your wrist a little bit to make sure you're keeping everything locked in place. Why don't you do that for us?
Yeah, so this is going to go right around his lead wrist. So it's bending forward, then around. And that's going to help create a little bit of a reminder of how much wrist hinge or club set we need. And then how long to maintain that. Because most people we see with, let's say, casting issues, once they get to the top of their backswing, they'll lose contact with that V2.
So the idea here is to get everything set and then maintain that contact.
Yeah, so let's just make maybe a half backswing.
Do you like that, Kyle, as an instructor? Do you like the way that is currently set up?
I do when I can control it.
What do you mean?
When I can control it as the instructor,
Yep.
because I'm looking for specific feedback. Just goes back to, can somebody set this up on their own, or is this something that's marketed more towards instructors when they're looking for that feedback?
Gotcha. Nick, how does it feel?
It's not too bad. It's a little uncomfortable in the hand, but
Because you're also gripping Velcro.
gripping the Velcro, right?
Yeah, that's
Which is a little weird. But honestly, I don't know. Like, even if I do something wrong, like, I don't know what
You
am I
still
what am I
maintain-
supposed to be feeling. Like, am I supposed to be feeling this on? Am I supposed to be feeling the pressure or no pressure?
Yeah, I would use this. I would use this as a directional. So go ahead and set up. A lot of players that we see will spin their arms right off the bat. And I would use this as a directional of, let's keep this pointed down towards the ground a little longer in the backswing so that that face is a little more shut and it's easier to get some body turn in there instead of just swinging your arms.
all right. So there's a multitude of options with it, but it sounds like you're saying the options are not going to do you much good unless you have some instruction to go along with it. We don't want to just take this out to the range with a large bucket and start beating balls on your own just with something wrapped around your wrist.
Correct. And the other issue with that V2 is that it's kind of, I wouldn't say flimsy is the right word, but a little unstable. If it's something that is a little firmer, then you're going to get a little more feedback. If you're hitting balls on a cold day and you got some layers on, you're flat out just not going to feel if it's moving or not. If you're hitting balls on a hot day or you have somebody watching that's kind of educated on the product, then you'll get the feedback and you'll get the changes that you're looking for. But it goes back to having someone else there.
All right, Kyle, one last element of the Total Golf Trainer is the wrist side. What are you seeing here?
So this is got a plate that goes on the top side of your forearm, and it's got a pretty short rod with some feedback that goes just on the top of his hand. It can be used a lot of different ways.
You don't seem like you're overly thrilled about this particular aspect of the kit.
Yeah, I think there are probably better ways to do this.
What is it supposed to be accomplishing?
Go ahead and set up. So it's supposed to help prevent scooping at impact. It's supposed to help prevent an arched lead wrist at the top of his backswing, so I'll have him go to the top. So I do like this. I do like this feedback of let's get the face in a little more square to shut position versus if he arches that wrist, he's going to get that direct feedback even though it slides a little bit. Yeah, you have to get it pretty tight to have that direct feedback.
So you have no circulation left, but great feedback.
You're going to lose
otherwise.
your lead arm.
So a little readjustment because it's kind of an abrasive Velcro strap, right? That's what's getting
Yeah.
you?
But I would say this is going to be the main use of it is at the top. Can you get into a flat lead wrist or a bowed left wrist versus that cupped position, which often causes over the top and shots that curve to the right. I would maybe use it for putting. If
Okay,
we're setting
so
up,
go to a putting.
grab a putter. We have a lot of people that just tend to use their wrists
Oh, okay, especially
in
on longer
putting, and
putts.
so
Oh, this would work for putting.
I think this is probably an unintended benefit of this training aid because I don't see anything on the website that references putting, but I do think, similar to a great drill Michael Breed gives is he puts a pen in the palm of his hand and tries to keep that end of his pen on the inside of his lead forearm. It's going to accomplish the same thing. Pen's cheaper. For sure, but this is going to try and accomplish the same thing where you get your hands and your arms to swing a little more in unison.
Okay, so we've seen each of the elements of this Total Golf Trainer from the standpoint of very busy, very well regarded instructor for the whole kit. What's your thought? Yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down, from both a consumer standpoint and an instructor standpoint?
I think for an instructor that is investing in some training aids, there's a couple pieces or a couple uses out of the kit that can be used. I think maybe a little more clarification on the documentation inside of the kit would be beneficial, because you're trusting the amateur golfers to understand how to use this. There are some videos on the website that can be beneficial, but for an instructor, I would say, yeah, it might be something that you look into. As a consumer, I think, it might be tough to understand and comprehend how to use all of it.
On your own.
Yeah.
So price point, 150-ish.
You can get a lot of things to get you better at the game for $150. I would probably use this 2 different ways out of the 25 ways. So for $150, I don't see that the value is there. For $150, you can go get a lesson from a pretty well-renowned instructor that may provide more value than this.
Nick, game changer for you?
Not really. Just because, like Kyle was saying, you can get a lot of this stuff with a pen, or even alignment sticks can do a lot of the same stuff that it's doing. Obviously, it's not going to do damage to your body, but I mean, you can put an alignment stick in your belt and get the same reaction that the first one was doing for you. This isn't bad for putting, but it is pretty uncomfortable. All of it I thought was pretty uncomfortable, to be honest. And I thought it was a little bit flimsy for what we're trying to accomplish, right? It's not going to give, it says it's going to give you immediate feedback, but I felt like if I were to get in wrong positions, it wasn't going to stop.
You can get around it.
I can get around it, right?
Yeah.
Like here, I mean, I can still bow my wrist. I mean, I can even cup it a little bit if I wanted to. It's just not going to stop me.
The majority, let's say out of the 1,000 lessons we give a year between the two of us, we use foot spray, snowplow stakes, and maybe that's about it. Maybe a hula hoop every now and then. But through all those lessons, that's the majority of what we're giving our students to work on, because it's affordable, it's practical, and you can have some feedback. At the end of the day, though, it's getting the instruction and having that understanding of what you got to do to get better, not necessarily having some training aids and guessing.
Well, there you have it from a PGA professional who gives a lot of lessons, an honest assessment of the total golf trainer. Now it's up to you to visit their website and decide for yourself if this is something that can help your game.